All right, so welcome to our session on embracing bumps in the leadership road. We are going to be joined by Laura in just a moment, and she is going to be sharing with us her session as an executive and leadership coach and taking us through some of the journeys of leadership that she has experienced and helping us with some questions so we can think about our own career and our own leadership. So we are here throughout the day as part of the Coaching Summit. You can join us through till 3 o'clock when we finish. There's a session every hour on the hour. So if you have time, do come back for another session after Laura. But for now, I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Laura Sellers, who will introduce herself and show us what she has in store. Laura, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a very warm welcome to a very warm day. Let me just share my screen. Hopefully you can all see that.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm just going to minimize there. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, welcome all. Thanks so much for joining us today. Like I say, very hot day. Hope you've got fans at the ready. I'm dying upstairs a little bit. It's very warm up here. So yeah, welcome to my presentation. I'm going to be taking you through how coaching can help you to embrace bumps in the leadership road. So yeah, I'm just going to move on there. I can't seem to move my, there we go. So just a little bit about me before we get started. So I have worked in leadership and management roles over the last 15 years of my career. Until very recently, I left the corporate world to set up as an executive and leadership coach. During my time in industry, I've worked in several sectors, the most recent one being in the supply chain and procurement space. And through that time, I absolutely got to love anything employee engagement related, people related. I love leadership development, personal development topics, and yeah, found a real love for coaching. And I was very lucky to have trained with the wonderful Joe and Zoe of In Good Company to then gain more skills as a coach. And then I set up my own business early on this year. So I've called my business Olive Executive and Leadership Coaching. Why, we asked maybe, but you will hear me speak about in this presentation, but also if you follow me on LinkedIn, I talk a lot about leadership journey, leadership stories. Every aspect of your career up until now has been like a building block and a foundation to where you are today. So for me, my professional career started abroad in Spain, and it was a wonderful part of my life. I was there for a few years. I'm back in the UK now, but I wanted something to, I don't know, signal back to where I've come from in terms of my journey. And also I like a bit of symbolism, and in terms of olive trees, there's a lot of different meanings to olive trees, and the same, like we all have our own journey, our own stories that are all unique to us. So I really like the thought of that as well. So yeah, that's a little bit of a taste of Spain, I guess. That's in my business name. So what else about me? I love to cook. I love to watch tennis. I can't hit a ball over a net at all, but I love to watch it, and anything related to Spain and Spanish. So yeah, and languages in general. So it's the background that I came from in my studies very early on. So I've always loved to connect with people. I think that's why I love languages so much. I love to really have deep conversations with people, really, and sort of understand what makes people tick. So yeah, that's a bit more about me. And I also have what I would call a healthy obsession with podcasts. I do listen to them quite a lot. I love anything personal development related, but also listen to sports podcasts. If you've got any recommendations, please drop them in the chat, because I'm always on the lookout for more. So yeah, that's a bit about me. So what am I going to talk to you about today? First, I'd like to talk about leadership. So let's talk about actually what leadership means to all of us, really, because it could be different to every single one of us. We can all be leaders, in my view, regardless of the job title. You know, we could be a leader in an organization. We could be leaders in our own business as being self-employed. And even actually, you could be a leader without having the title in a job, you know, because actually we all influence the people that are around us. So I really like to think that in terms of taking ownership of our own development and our own journey, we can all actually class ourselves as leaders no matter where we are in that journey. And also, leadership takes a lot of courage, no matter how many years of experience you have. You know, from the people that I've worked with, both through coaching and just through the years that I've worked in the sectors, is that it's a journey, and there will always be new challenges. We've seen that over the last couple of years, haven't we? How new things can come along. So it's always really good to have some tools to hand, or some powerful questions that can help you to embrace those challenges that come along with being a leader. It's something that I always wanted to be. I wanted to climb the corporate ladder when I started out early in my career, and it seemed so idyllic, at the start, but when you get into it and you realize actually it's so full of challenges, but also it's really rewarding as well. And it's about how you can embrace the highs as well as the lows to then become more resilient as a leader. So I would love just to hear from you guys today, if you want to just drop a word or two in the chat, just how you would describe your own leadership journey to date. I'll kick it off. I would describe mine as a roller coaster. So I'd love to, Zoe, if you, I can't see the chat, so if you wouldn't mind popping anything in there, if anyone is willing to share.
Yeah, of course. I just dropped mine in. I would describe mine as surprising. Anna, rewarding. Constantly evolving, thrown in at the deep end and self-event. Yeah. Entertaining and fun. I would describe mine as eclectic, different every day, against the grain, a bit of a nightmare at times, rewarding and challenging, bumpy. Yeah. Confusing but fun. Yeah. So, some great ways to describe it there.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing, everyone. And it's great words to describe it, because it's all unique to all of us. And it's I think somebody said it constantly evolving, because I don't think you ever get to a point in your leadership journey, no matter where you are, where you know everything, and where there's always more to learn, isn't there? So yeah, great answers. Thank you. So what I'm just going to take you through are some tools and powerful questions that can support you no matter where you find yourself in that journey. And as I keep saying, we all have our own unique stories. So so what I thought I would do is pick out maybe 3 key things or key events that might help people to find some commonality in that journey. So I'm going to talk about external events, I'm going to talk about past events, and I'm going to touch on future events as well. So first of all, starting with external events. So this can happen to all of us, as I touched on earlier. We've all had a pandemic to live through these past couple of years, which really probably threw a spanner in the works and really challenged us in ways that we never really thought we would be challenged in terms of our careers and our lives. But I think I heard a great quote at the start of the pandemic, and I'm going to attribute it to a psychotherapist called Anna Martha. She supports new mums, and she said something like, "We're all in the same storm, but all in different boats." And I really like that analogy, because we all had our own situations to deal with when we were in the pandemic, as an example. There's other external events. There's a lot of talk about an impending recession. There's obviously the war that's going on. So there can be a lot of external events that can sometimes make us feel quite overwhelmed, and can also then impact the way that we go about our careers and our lives. So I'm going to use the pandemic as an example in this tool. So this tool is about the circle of influence. So it's where we have a circle of concern, a circle of influence, and then a circle of control. And it's taken from a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by a guy called Stephen Covey. It's a great tool to help you to put into perspective and reduce overwhelm when you are facing things that are going on that aren't really not in our control. So again, like I said, I use the pandemic. So the circle of concern, you can use this tool to detail everything that is bothering you at the moment. Okay, so if I use, for example, the pandemic, when we're obviously towards the end of it now, although I know that the cases have spiked again recently, but if you take yourself back a couple of years, when we were at the start of this, it was something so new, something so, I guess we didn't really understand what was about to hit us, that it was going to be 2 years. We thought it was just going to be a few weeks. So there was a lot of worry, a lot of concern about how it would affect us. So what this tool is useful to do is think about all the things that did worry you during that time, or can worry you in any other event that you want to use for this. So put all the things in that circle that are bothering you, that are stopping you from moving forward or affecting the way that you're dealing with your tasks on your work list that day. And then the idea is to think about what can we then put within our circle of influence. So we might not be able to directly control the pandemic, but what can we do? What could we have done that could help us to deal with it a bit differently, or to feel like we have a bit more control over that? So just in terms of ideas and suggestions, perhaps, well, individually, we could all have followed the guidelines that we were given at the time to then help reduce the impact of the pandemic, as an example. So I'm just using really high level stuff here, but obviously if you had lots of things in your circle of concern, you could then think, okay, so what can I do that might have an influence over that concern, but might not be able to directly control it. So there could be other things that you might want to put in there as well. So the idea is to move as many things out of your circle of concern to then put them within your circle of influence, and then your circle of concern might not seem so overwhelming. And then we can even go a step further and go, well, what is directly within my control about the way that this issue is affecting me? So as an example, something that really affected me during the pandemic was the amount of social media and media that I was consuming. So I don't know if you remember, they used to do a press conference every day at 5 o'clock. The government, so I used to be there watching it every day, I need to go be up to date, and I realized it was really affecting my day. And then I'd be going on social media, I'd be going and looking at all of the people's thoughts on there, and it was really starting to make me feel quite overwhelmed, because at the time, my last role, we were working in a business that was very much directly affected by the pandemic. We were the procurement team for providing equipment to hospitals, including ventilators. So we had a team that were absolutely working under pressure to provide those ventilators, but also we're dealing with the circumstances of having their children at home and not at school, or being isolated at home because they lived on their own. So we had a lot of different things to deal with. So it was like, well, what can we control about the way that we are feeling about these things? So for me, I stopped looking at social media for quite a while, and that really, really helped me and made me feel a lot more in control of what was going on. So it's just a tool that might be able to help you to move between the different circles to see what you can bring in, what's more within your control, because also we can all react in different ways, but we can choose to respond in certain ways as well to certain things. So like I say, I've used a very high level example here of something that we might all identify with, but for whatever you might have that's going on when you feel quite overwhelmed, this is a really good tool to just put in perspective what external events actually we can influence and we can then control within our immediate circle. So then I want to move on. So that's the external events. They will happen, they'll continue to happen. But I also now want to touch a little bit on past events, or what I like to call career ghosts. So what I would define as a career ghost is an event, a decision, or a mistake in our career that they hold us back, they stop us from moving forward, and they can influence the way that we lead. And the way that I'd like to think about it, if you see this guy here with a rucksack, is that as you go through your career from whenever you've started, you pick up things and they go in your bag, and some of them weigh heavier than others. Some of them are a little bit lighter, but they're still there. We still remember them. And as you go through your career, they might start to weigh a bit heavy and start to stop us from moving forward or taking decisions, because we're thinking about what might have happened. So I was just wondering, has anybody else got a career ghost? Because I have. It'd be great if you could put your hand up or just say yes or no in the chat, would be great.
So, yeah, Anna says she got lots. Jeanette saying yes, she has. Yep, lots. Yes. So
brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. So I thought I'd come up with some examples that I've come up with people in my coaching experience, and also when I've coached and mentored people in my old roles, that we had a lot of things where people were worried about how they'd made a mistake in a presentation or said the wrong thing in a meeting, and they were worried that it had affected their personal brand. They might have had a relationship in conflict where they feel like somebody stumped them from moving on in their career, or they didn't get support from a line manager, or where actually they should have taken a different path. I know I had lots of different dreams in my career when I was 22 and I left uni, as opposed to where I am now at almost 40. So, I think sometimes we can look back on our career and think, oh, what if I'd taken this path, and what if I'd taken that path? And we get into a bit of a shoulda, woulda, coulda. Or maybe we've missed out on opportunities at work. So these are just examples that have popped up in conversations that I've had, but there are plenty more, I'm sure. I don't know if you can identify with any of those, but like I say, they all just weigh on our backs in these bags that we carry. And again, some of them might be really heavy, some of them might actually be quite small, but they've built up over time in the way that we've put the perspective and the way that we've thought about them. So what can we do to try and help us move forward with these career ghosts? So how can we put these ghosts to rest? First of all, it sounds really simple, but to actually identify them, because as you gain more experience in your career, you might forget about some of them, or they might just be there as little niggles, and then they might show up again in a different way and a different way after that. And actually, you might all of a sudden discover that there's a pattern. So I'll happily share something from mine. So very early on in the start of my career, I was really ambitious. I wanted to climb the career ladder. And for me, that just meant being a manager, you know, in where I was at the time. So I was abroad, and I was working in a really high-paced, high-stress environment, in a sales and marketing environment, and I really wanted to be a manager, and a manager turned around to me and says, "You haven't got what it takes." So and this was a long time ago, but it stuck with me for a bit, you know. So but I then put it to one side, because eventually I did become a manager. But then when I then wanted to go for the next position of a management as a bit more senior, that voice would still be there. So it's really good just to sit and write them all down. It's a short session today, so and there will be a replay on this, so you know, maybe it's something you can do on reflection at a later date. But I find it's really good just to write down anything that you might be carrying in that bag that is stopping you from moving forward, and then maybe notice if there's anything that is recurring, or how long it's been there for. And a really good way to also think about them and put them into a perspective is also to try and understand why they hurt so much, or why they're still hanging there. So there's been some great sessions so far on values, so I'm not going to touch too much on going into values here, but I have got a PDF that I can share with you at the end. So how do these events, maybe if you could have a think about how they conflict with your values, if you know what your values are. So one of my strongest values in terms of career is personal achievement. I like to achieve things. I like to have ambition. I really love when people have ambition as well. Like, I think it's, you know, it's great to have a goal. So so I think where for me that example that I gave really conflicted with my values was that was what I really wanted, and that I thought I was made to do, and this guy was telling me something different. His intentions might have been totally different, you know. I needed to reframe that at some point, but something to really think about how to maybe process that is think about which value that might have conflicted with. And then also it's, well, how can I deal with that situation by honoring my values? Well, I still have that value of personal achievement, so I need to honor that by trying to move forward and try and get that goal. So if you have a value that you think, well, actually, am I honoring my value by being stuck with this memory? Then that might be something that can help you to put that into perspective. And then also you could even use the tool that I shared earlier about referring back to the circle of influence, because these are things that have happened in the past, and they may have really, really hurt. They may have really damaged our confidence. But how can we influence or control how that affects us now? So it could be that the person, if there's a person related to this, it might be you that's related to this, and nobody else. But think about, well, how can we control the way that affects us moving forward? So you can use that tool that I shared earlier. And then also I'm going to share some questions that can help you to reframe the beliefs that you have about these events. So I'm going to use an example of somebody else that I coached recently who had a memory that was really stopping her from putting herself forward for other roles, because she was really upset about a presentation that didn't go to plan. And she had thought that everybody had noticed the mistakes that she had made, but actually when we reframed this together in our coaching relationship, she realized that actually it wasn't as bad as she thought. So how can you reframe those beliefs? Because actually, in my circumstance, if this manager thought that I wasn't capable of being a leader, well, I might not have been capable of leader in that environment, but I was certainly capable of being a leader in another environment. So it's about reframing those beliefs to serve us in the now, in the present, and for the future. So what powerful questions can help us with the reframing of those beliefs? So we've turned these ghosts maybe into beliefs about our capability and our confidence. Think about where the belief came from. So you've written your list about your career ghosts that are hanging in, which ones are more present than others, because there will be some that don't bother you so much, and there will be others that are still there. They're really present in your head. So where does it come from? Identify that pinpoint, because if we've got a pattern, if we're doubting our capability now, we might have seen that actually, well, he told me I wasn't capable of being a manager when I was 22. And then I didn't get the job to be a manager when I was 25. So that means that that might be true. And we can start to then reinforce those beliefs. But actually, I then got a role as a manager, and then again, and then again. So it's about how can we take the positive beliefs and reinforce them to believe that we have the confidence and the capability to move forward. And also think about who gave you this belief, because it could be a person, like in my circumstance, I've given an example of somebody else, but actually the person we talk to most in our working day is ourselves. So how am I reinforcing that belief that I've got as well? And then it's really important to think, was this person, that other manager, or me? Are we always right? No, because I don't know anybody who's always right. So then we can actually start to reframe, okay, what's going on here? No, actually, I've got evidence that shows I can still do this. And then what evidence do I have for this belief always being true? So if I go back to my coaching client who thought that she messed up on a presentation, she had delivered so many of the presentations that had gone well. And that's what we started to reframe together. So actually, there was a lot of other presentations. There was circumstances where spontaneously she had to present, and she did a really good job and got great feedback. So it's about which ones are we going to carry forward, which rocks are we going to drop out of that rucksack, and which ones are we going to take with us that are a bit lighter to carry. And also a great question that I love here is, what is this belief costing me on a daily basis? Because that is, if I use my example again, that happened to me when I was 22. So I think I've almost shared my age anyway. I'm about to hit 40 next year. So, how long am I going to carry this belief with me for? And what is it costing me? So, that one I did let go quite a while ago, but it still comes back now and again. And I think it's about how can we reframe that belief with, actually, I've been and done lots of leadership management experience, so I know I'm capable now. So think about how what that is costing you from moving forward. And then what will holding this belief mean for me in the long term if I continue to move this forward? About what, if I continue holding on to this ghost, what is it going to stop me from doing? Is it going to stop me from applying for another role? Is it going to stop me from starting my own business? Is it going to stop me from going out after that next opportunity? It's always really important to know if you're willing to stay with the belief, that's fine if you want to, but it's about which weighs heavier, which one would you like to take forward? And then also it's really important to think, well, how would my career be different if I didn't believe this? So if I believe that actually I was capable, where would I be now? Where could I go? Where can I go? So these are just some really, really good questions that can really help to reframe these ghosts that we're hanging on to. And then I'm going to move on now to anticipating the bumps in the road that haven't even happened yet. So this is where we can take the experiences that we've had, the ghosts, the external events that we've already talked about, and actually, how does this stop us from moving forward? So there is a great tool about comfort zone and about how, if we use the presenting example again of the lady that I worked with, what was in her comfort zone was to present within an immediate team. But the absolute fear that she had was to present to a team of 100 people. So that was absolutely in her fear zone. And what this tool allows you to do is to actually frame where your fear sits, because there are plenty of things that we feel really reluctant to do when we're in leadership, when we're leading our teams and we don't know where we're going. If we use the pandemic example again, we did not know what was in store for us. So we just had to go with what we had at the time, and that was all we could do. So this is a great tool to help you to reframe those challenges that you've got coming up. So what is within your comfort zone with a goal? So let's take presenting. So and the example of the lady that I work with, she had the goal of, I want to start presenting again. So we said, well, what's in your fear zone? Presenting to 100 people. What's in your comfort zone? Well, I'm okay presenting to my team. I do that all the time. So we said, well, okay, well, what's in the stretch zone then? What could be something that's a bit more unfamiliar, but could get you closer to your goal of the fear zone? So she came up with an example where she would be able to present to a larger group of people outside of her team, but was not as big as the one that she was really, really afraid of. And what we also used was her values and beliefs to step out of her comfort zone. So one thing that this coachee identified with was that also she had a value of personal achievement. She really wanted to move forward. So she acknowledged that actually I need to put myself in a position where I am going to go forward, and doing this in presenting is going to do that for me. So this is a really, really good tool to reframe that. And the idea is that you can then move those fears between the different zones, because if you look back on those career ghosts and you look back on those twists and turns you've already taken with your journey, you will see things that you did that were so far out of your comfort zone, but now are second nature to you. So presenting might be one of them, or perhaps leading a team might be another. When you first started to manage people might look quite different to how you now lead people now, because as we go and we gain experience, we learn, we grow, and we become more confident, more resilient. So have a think about what could be within your stretch zone that is going to take you closer to the goal and also help you be more resilient in terms of leading your team. So again, other examples such as in the pandemic, you know, we didn't know how long we were going to be at home for when we were working there, but what we did do to be able to support others being in this fear of the unknown, fear of how long are we going to be at home for, we tried to increase the employee engagement activities and things like that. So that really helped the team as they were working through a really difficult time. We set up some counselling support, some 24/7 employee assistant programs. So lots and lots of tools that you can do, or this is a tool that you can use for goals that you have and how you can support yourself in your leadership career, because actually as well there will always be bumps, there will always be twists and turns, but the real idea is to take what you've learned already, take your career ghosts and what you can learn from them and how that can build your resilience, and then how you can then be true to your values in moving forward in your leadership journey. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions about any of those tools that I've shared so far, but I'll just recap. So how can coaching tools help you to embrace the bumps in the leadership road? First of all, think about your circle of influence. What is within your control? What is within your circle of influence? And then what's in your circle of concern? Just to be able to identify them and to lay them out there really helps to get a bit of clarity. And also think about what career ghosts are you holding on to from moving forward in your career journey? What's stopping you from having the confidence to move forward and the resilience? And a really good way to identify that is also to think about which values are really important to you in your career, so they can really help you, they can signpost you to a way to move forward. And also think about those powerful questions that I shared as well around beliefs. How did those beliefs form where you feel now, or the way you feel now, and where you are at now in your leadership journey? Oh, apologies, went the wrong way. And then finally, moving forward, so how can you use the comfort zone tool to then sit with a goal and put it into your stretch zone, and then move it from your fear zone back into your stretch zone as well? So this will help you to then go forward with confidence, and will build evidence as well that you are actually capable of being a really great leader, no matter where you're at, whether you're in your self-employment journey, if you're in a business, if you're in an organization. It's definitely there for the taking. With these sorts of tools, it can absolutely help you be a lot more resilient. And then finally, if you'd like to know more about my messaging, and if you'd like to know more about my coaching services, I've got some QR codes here. So my LinkedIn profile is available through this one, this QR code here. If you can't read the QR code for any reason because you're on a phone already, you can also be signposted to that on my website, weareolive.co.uk. I also have a great guide to help you with your career values and how they are so important to where we take our leadership journey next. So again, another QR code that will take you there. If you can't read the QR code, then again, you'll find it on my website. And I do also do one-to-one coaching packages, and I've got some that are available for September start. So if you're interested in knowing how my services can help you, then I have got some packages available. So just send me a message.
Fabulous. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
So we have got some time for questions. If any of you have any questions for Laura whilst we are together, then feel free to drop them in the chat or to speak up. I know there was a lot of love for your career ghosts, and it reminded me of one of mine. where it was a presentation one. Maybe that's a trend, but I remember I was probably about in my 20s as well, and they were like, oh, who wants to do a speak at the kind of all employee day? And there's about 250 employees. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Really ambitious. I completely froze during my presentation, and that haunted me for years about being a rubbish presenter. So it took a while to overcome that one, but yeah, as we all know, I probably have done that now, so which is fantastic. It goes to show what coaching can do, doesn't it? So
absolutely. Oh, thanks very much for the comments, everyone.
Yeah,
thank you.
So we've got a question from Diane, which is, what did you find the most challenging thing starting up your coaching business?
That's a really, really good question. I think there's always different challenges because all of a sudden you're responsible for everything rather than just one particular aspect. So the things I was really nervous about are the things I've actually really enjoyed, believe it or not, because I just pushed myself a bit out of my comfort zone. So that was around the posting on social media was a really big fear thing for me. So but I'm getting more comfortable with that now. And also I was a little bit nervous about website tinkering and building because I'd had an experience of that before where I didn't find it very intuitive, but I've had a great experience with that. What I would say to anyone who is considering setting up as a coach, because I know there's a few in your community, Zoe, that might be here today. I'd made the decision that I wanted to set out as a coach about a year before I did it, because I wanted to make sure I'd done all the training. But one thing I would say is that I actually started my career, my coaching business a year sooner in terms of mindset. So I did a lot of personal development work. Obviously, going through the coaching training anyway really helps you to confront all of those things. But definitely, I would say that the podcast, like I say, I'm very, very enthusiastic about podcasts. I listen to them religiously every week, and that really helps me in terms of my self-belief. And I think having that year's foundation of the self-belief really helps me to push forward once I'd set out into self-employment. Great question. Thank you.
And Jeanette's asked, what's been the most effective way of growing your coaching business and finding clients?
I think definitely consistency and visibility is that we all have stories that we want to share, leadership stories as an example, but I think, don't be afraid to put your story out there and be you, because people will relate to you. And so that was something that I found, that the more personal things that I've put out there has attracted more engagement and more messages. So when I've been vulnerable, when I've said, you know what, I made a mistake, I put a post out there about how, I've made mistakes in my career as a leader. Absolutely. There is nobody who's got it right every single time, but I also got lots of things right. So it's about how we reframe those.
Brilliant. And what are your favorite podcasts apart from the Coaching Crowd, of course?
Coaching Crowd every Monday for the Coaching Crowd. In fact, most of my favorite ones come out every Monday. So I love the High Performance podcast by a guy called Jake Humphrey and Professor Damien Hughes. So they interview successful sports people, entrepreneurs, and a wide range of people, and it's all about mindset and about growth and everything. That was the podcast that saw me through this last year. I also love A Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. Is also a really good one. And if there are any tennis fans here, there is one called Control the Controllables, which I love because it's about the tennis world, but there's a lot of talk about mindset as well. So it's like a bringing together of two of my passions, really. So yeah, but I've probably got quite a few more. There's quite a few ones for like businessy ones as well, but I can't quite remember the name. I've just discovered them apart from Joe and Zoe's. I think there's one called The Art of Entrepreneurship, which I really like as well. I found that through a lady on LinkedIn.
In my early days of coaching business, I binged Amy Porterfield's podcast, which was a great foundation to building a coaching business. So for those of you in that space,
another good one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Laura. It's been a brilliant session. I know there's been lots of appreciation for your career ghosts kind of piece. I think we can all relate to that, and for the tools and techniques that you've shared there. So thank you very much. And thank you to all of you who have been with us as well. Next up in the Coaching Summit timetable, we have got Anna Hewitt, who I think is on the line, probably building her nerves as we speak, and Rosie as well, and they're going to be doing a coaching demo, which is going to be amazing. So live demonstration of overcoming overwhelm So join us for that if you can, and we will see you back here at 12 o'clock. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for joining.
Take care.